Today's episode of the School of Podcasting Morning Announcements is recorded live in front of my dog. Yeah, okay, whatever. April Fools. Today on episode number 349 of the School of Podcasting's Morning Announcements, wait till you hear this podcast success story. How'd you like a free ride to college, including the plane ticket? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about getting guests on your podcast. Hit it, ladies.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005, bringing along my 20 plus years of training skills to this here microphone. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, and this is the original Don't Be Fooled by Cheap Imitations podcast about podcasting. And I thank you so much for tuning in. I am so goofy today. I got to tell you, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about everything podcasting, from planning to recording to editing to promoting to monetizing, all points in between. In fact, if you're looking for one place on the internet that has everything about podcasting, boy, you've come to the right place. Check out schoolofpodcasting.com. Everything you need, step-by-step tutorials, as well as podcasting resources for music, graphics, WordPress themes. It's all there, schoolofpodcasting.com. If you want to join in on the conversation, man, would I love to have you. A couple different ways you can contact me. My email is dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. My voicemail, courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com, is 888-563-3228. That number again is 888-563-3228. I think today, for April Fool's Day, I'm going to be Binky. Just call me Binky. Because to me, anytime there was like a wacky morning radio show, it was always like, hey, it's the Binky and the Wiz show. Bringing it up. Let's turn up the energy. Come on, Binky. Woo! I don't get April Fool's Day. Anyway, you can also click on the voicemail button out at our website. And today we have an interview that I'm just going to get to. You got to hear this story. I will say this. I'm doing this live, by the way. Recording live to my Roland R-05 recorder, hence why the music is still here, and why I can actually do fun things like I can tune this out, and I can play Laverne and Shirley and go, hey, what's going on, Cheryl? Right. So, right, Ted Nugent?
You know what I like.
All right. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. You got to hear this story. In fact, I'm just going to get to it. Wait till you hear this story. Now, I will say this. Nick's topic, his podcast, is, in my opinion, kind of uber niche. He explained it to me that eventually his topic is going to be mainstream. It's on Singularity. And if you want to check it out, I'll put a link to this. Everything we talk about today, you can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/349. I do have one other little note here that I'm always talking about ways you can make money podcasting, and I want to talk about a new way that I'm making money podcasting. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/you promise, as in the letter U, promise, what this is, especially for people like me who have massive amounts of student loans, this is a way I just go around and I use my debit card. And there are different places that participate in the program, and you earn cash back. And the cash back now goes to pay off your student loan. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So if you want to check it out, you can actually, now here's the real story on this. What they want you to do is, instead of using your debit card, and I find this somewhat insulting, they want you, the person who, the idea is it's for parents and things like that want to help save money for their kids. But for me, I've already got the student debt. And they come to me and go, yeah, why don't you get another credit card? I'm like, don't I owe you people enough money? But if you actually get a credit card, it's basically a credit card with cash back. And so you get an additional 5% off. So if you're trying to save money for your children for college, check it out. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/you promise. And so far I've earned, I think, $7 that will be going off on my $19,000 of student loans that I have acquired. With that, let's go on over to my new buddy, Nick. Wait till you hear the story. I'm just going to leave it at that. Stay tuned. And when he talks about his podcast, hang in there. It's a little technical, a little different, and very niche again, though. And you will hear about that. So check this out about how, well, just shut up and hit the play button, Dave. All right. Well, every week we like to spotlight some podcasting success, whether it's, I always say it's just basically answering the question, because of my podcast, blank. And we have Nick Danaylov. Is that how you pronounce that again?
Nick Danaylov.
Danaylov, got you. From the Singularity One-on-One. You can find that at Singularity One, the number one, on the number1.com. And Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, the pleasure is entirely mine.
And let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Well, as the name would suggest, Singularity One-on-One is basically a series of podcast interviews with the best scientists, writers, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, journalists, philosophers, and artists, debating and discussing the issues related to the technological singularity.
You know, how have you been benefiting from your podcast?
Oh, it's been absolutely incredible. And before I started, I first had to overcome some of my fears, namely, as you're noticing already, I have a pretty thick Bulgarian accent.
No.
And so my biggest fear was, okay, so you want to be a podcaster and you're not a native English speaker, you have a heavy accent. Would anyone ever care to listen to your podcast because of that accent? I mean, so I wasn't sure, honestly. I had serious doubts. And on top of it, I was very unfamiliar with the technology required. I didn't know anything about the microphones, about the programs. I didn't know anything, basically, starting from ground zero.
Okay.
And so what happened was I decided to approach my podcast strategically. You know, the biggest or the best place to talk about the issues that I'm covering in my blog is a place called Singularity University. Singularity University is located on NASA's Ames campus in Mountain View, California. And they have a program which is one of the most competitive programs in the world. It's many times tougher to get at Singularity University than to get in a law school in Harvard or in a PhD program in anywhere in the world. So in the year that I was applying and finally got in, that was the third year, they had about 2,100 applicants for 80 spots. Those applicants were from about, I think, 110 different countries. Many of them were entrepreneurs with hundreds of millions of dollars. Many of them were professors with published books.
Let's just stop there a second. Regardless of the caliber of other candidates, 2,100 people for 80 spots. So when he says it's tough to get into this place, he is not kidding. That's amazing. Let's carry on. And also, I'm going to stop here because I wanted to mention this. I'm just praying that the program I'm using Jingle Palette to play this so I can kind of pause and go along here. And he's sitting there thinking, is anybody going to listen to me? Especially because he has an accent. And first of all, you guys know me. I think accents are cool. As long as I can understand you, I'm good to go. And as long as your English is fine, as long as you're not talking like people who leave comments on your blogs, right? Where it's like, this is good blog. I am good. I am good for the, and you're like, what? That doesn't even make sense, right? And his English is fine. I dig his accent. I listen to the Internet Marketing Podcast with Kelvin Newman and Dr. Pod, Andy White. And, they have a cool British thing going on, which is, now I can't listen to that on double speed because it freaks out my ears when they do that, but I like it. And, Mike Russell, obviously, from Music Radio Creative. So don't think your accent is going to stop people from listening. What would stop me from listening is if I can't understand you. And there are those. I mean, you get into Scottish accents and I don't know. Is there such a thing as such an American accent that it's just you can't listen to it because all my R's are really hard and I don't know. But so don't put it out there. Don't go with the mentality of nobody's going to listen because you're never going to know until you put it out there. All right, Let's continue on with the story.
So, and the age fluctuates from 19 to, I don't know, the oldest guy I think was 52. And so it's a very competitive place to get accepted to. It's also a very expensive place in the sense that it costs about $30,000 for about a 10-week program.
Dope!
During which time you are there. You actually live and sleep on NASA's campus, which is absolutely amazing. And you get to meet all those incredible people pretty much every day. And
wow. So all these wonderful people that are applying, there's only 80 spots. And now not only are you part of the school, you live there. Think about this. Let's go back, whatever, to the 60s. This would be like Einstein and all these major scientific people that you're like the who's who of that niche. And you get to like hang out. It's like the real world house, right? The Big Brother house, only it's a NASA college. How cool is that? And this is what Nick was trying to get into.
So basically I applied twice to Singularity University and I was not accepted. And when I started the podcast, my strategy was the following. I thought to myself, well, I tried twice and I didn't get accepted. What can I do the third time to improve my chances of getting there? And I thought, well, perhaps the biggest change that I can make is get letters of reference from the most incredible cutting-edge scientists in the world. How do you do that if you don't know them, if you're not even in their field, and if you're a nobody?
Anybody know the answer to that one? Come on. Yeah, you know it.
Right. Well, you do it with a podcast.
Yeah, baby.
And as you know, probably, in time, you tend to develop relationship with people, especially once you interview them a couple of times and if they've been impressed by your questions and enjoyed the experience. And so when the third-year application time came about, I was very fortunate that, I already had done about 30 interviews, and I sent requests to 3 or 4 of my interviewees, and I was very glad that 3 of them accepted and wrote very nice letters of reference for me. My initial thing was, well, nobody knows my professors here at University of Toronto or York University or whatever in California. But those people in those cutting-edge fields are well known in Silicon Valley. So if they can give me letters of reference, that will change my application, perhaps, my chances of being accepted. And as it turned out, I don't know if that was the single most important reason, but that's the direct result of me doing the podcast that I was able to do that. And eventually, I did get accepted and got to spend 10 weeks in NASA on a full scholarship, by the way. It was so incredible that first they paid for everything, and that's even more rare than being accepted because I think at the time they only had about half a dozen worth of scholarships out of the 80 spots. And I mean, now they're getting more and more famous, so they're getting more and more sponsors and they're getting more and more scholarships, which is great. But at the time, it was a little more competitive.
Sure.
And also, I tweeted that I've been accepted. I tweeted something like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been accepted to Singularity University. And one of my Twitter followers, who's been following my podcast for a while, said, you deserve it. Wait, I want to buy your plane ticket.
Wow.
And I was like, no way.
Isn't that cool? So wait a minute. I get to go to college for free. Oh, and by the way, somebody I met on social media is buying my plane ticket. Isn't that cool?
15 minutes after, he emailed me a plane ticket from Toronto to San Francisco, and I didn't even have to buy a plane ticket.
Wow. That's cool.
And so all of those events, actually, I believe, could not have happened without me doing the podcast.
Absolutely. That's a great story. Can you think of anything that, made things pick up, or was it just a case where eventually, you had whatever, let's say you had 30 people, and the next week you had 35, and the next week after that you had 37, and just after you do that a year and a half, you're up to 100, 200 people, and the fact that everybody keeps telling two friends.
Yeah, you know what? That's my belief is that, it takes 20 years to be an overnight success. Now, I mean, if you're a Justin Bieber or something like that, maybe happening like that, okay. But for most people, you actually have to take it on a step-by-step basis. So I personally cannot identify a single point in time where my traffic suddenly spiked all the way up. It's been sort of a very slow, gradual, grinding growth, painful growth, if you will. And that takes a lot of effort, a lot of consistency, as I said, a lot of integrity and a total commitment.
Well, that was going to be my question. How did you keep going during those times? Because a lot of people don't. They quit.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true. Most people don't make it beyond the first maybe 10 episodes at most, even if that. But, two secrets that I could share here, two of my secrets were, first, I truly believe in what I'm doing, right? So I believe that the issues...
Okay, I want to stop here. I wish I could rewind back that. One of the things that I noticed here, that I'm starting to notice, that people that are having success with their podcast, or people that keep going because Nick's been doing this podcast for about 3 years. I went back and kind of tightened up the interview a little bit. And so he's been doing this for 3 years. But the one thing that is fueling his podcast is Nick is on a mission. And I guess we could dub this, purpose-filled podcast. Right, you've probably heard of the Purpose-Driven Life, or whatever that one book was. He has a purpose. He has a drive to do this podcast. He truly believes that the topic of singularity is something that's going to come up in the future. That while right now I'm going, I have no idea what you're talking about. When I listen to his, in the years to come, everybody's going to be talking about singularity. And so he is a man on a mission to get the word out about singularity. And so it's something I'm starting to notice is a lot of people, like for me, the passion that fuels this is I love to help people. I love to take people who like Nick. Now, I didn't work with Nick when he started his podcast, but I hear people like Nick that go, nobody's going to listen to me. We listened to Dr. Nina last week. People that come to me and go, I don't know, I'm not much of a geek. It's okay. Can you make a document in Microsoft Word? Yeah, well, then you can do your own website. Seriously? Yeah, seriously. So in this case, Nick has a huge passion and a drive and a purpose behind his podcast. Let's continue on.
Related to the technological singularity are going to be the issues of this century. Things like genetics, robotics, nanotech, artificial intelligence are truly going to undermine, question, and make us doubt what we mean by saying the word human, for example. What do we mean by humanity? Is there any parameters that can be universally accepted behind that term? And all the things that follow from there onwards, and whether we're allowed to, quote, meddle with the meaning and the perhaps physical parameters, if there are any, of that term. So I believe those are very important issues, and they're only going to get more and more mainstream issues. So they're not doomed to stay niche, but they are going to be mainstream. So that was number one, which kept me motivated and going. Number two.
Now, before we get to his number two, think about that. So he knows right now that he's not going to have a ginormous audience. Nobody's talking about this yet. But he started the podcast now, knowing that in the few years, or however long it's going to take, over the next century, I think he said, this is going to be a huge, huge deal, he says. And it's right now I'm not scientific enough. I haven't listened to his podcast to kind of tune into it yet. But he started it knowing there wasn't going to be a huge audience, but he knew that people had to get the word out about this. And Nick, when he was in school, when he was studying, he told me behind the scenes, he studied a lot about kind of the art of war, and I'm paraphrasing this. So when he talks about, he strategically released this, he's always talking about strategy, and that's kind of what is part of his makeup in terms of how he approaches things. He's very a strategy to do this and that, which makes sense for a science kind of related person, have a very step-by-step approach. So let's go back to his second reason here.
Is though, as I said, another nice thing about interviewing people who are the best in their field is that if they like what you're doing, if they like your podcast, if they like your interview, everybody's favorite subject is their work and themselves, right? And so if they like the interview that they did with you, they would share that with their followers. They would tweet about it. They would post it on Facebook. They would post it everywhere. And so in other words, what happens is they're doing the marketing for you, right? They will say something, oh, I just did an interview on Singularity one-on-one. Check it out. And they'll have a number of followers. Some of those followers would come check it out. And then some of those people who come check it out would say, oh, that's actually a cool show. I want to see who's the previous guest.
Which is one of the reasons why I say, if you're trying to grow your audience, one strategy that almost always works is interviews. Because in theory, the person you're interviewing is going to talk about the topic that you like to talk about on your podcast. Hopefully, that person has family, friends following them who he can then, like you said, people love to talk about themselves and they love to talk about their topic. So they're going to say, I talked about me and my topic over there. And so that will then bring in an audience. That's one way to build. Now, on the other hand, I've been doing more interviews. As a podcaster, they are a lot of work to schedule, to edit, and things of that nature. So it's an even trade there. You're going to put in a lot more work, but everybody I know that does interviews from time to time, it does create a bit of a boost in your listeners and your downloads.
So they'll check out my previous episode and they'll be like, yeah, I want to subscribe to this guy's newsletter and I want to see who is going to interview next. And so, you can actually get, and it does get a little easier, but as I said, for me, it has been so far more of a gradual thing. With the more people you interview, the easier it is to get another interview with famous people because they're thinking, oh, if Ray Kurzweil did this interview with this guy, I'd better go and do that interview too because he's like the most famous person in that niche. Sure. Even if I disagree with him, right? Even if I'm skeptical about the singularity, because Ray went there, that kind of lends me credibility. And so I can get skeptics, people who are, for example, religious or can be skeptical for whatever other reasons. And I often get skeptics and opponents on my show to discuss their points of view. And they come simply because of the previous people that I've interviewed on the show, which is basically a who's who list in all those fields.
How did you, you said it got easier once you had a few people. How did you go about getting the first few guests?
Now here, listen to this answer. This is where you're going to hear Nick's passion, his purpose, and the fact, his just drive to create a great podcast. And again, he wanted to get to know these people because he had an end result. He wanted that letter of recommendation, but nonetheless, listen to this answer.
Well, that's the real tough part, right? So it's very hard to gain momentum, even if it's, just modest or moderate momentum like I have. But basically, you have to convince people that you are the real thing. So right now, my email is pretty much the following. Hi, so-and-so. My name is Nikola Danaylov, and I'm the blogger behind SingularityWeblog.com and the podcaster host of Singularity One-on-One. My show has had over 90 episodes so far, And some of my previous guests include people such as, and then I give about 10 different names, which are supposed to impress the person that I'm sending the email to. Then I say something like, my blog gets about 50,000 unique visitors per month, and my show has had about 500,000 episode views. For the benefit of all, I would like to invite you to be the next guest on my show. I will do my best to fit your schedule. Thank you very much for your consideration. So very short, straight to the point, kind of an interview, kind of a request. And I get about 80% success, I think, maybe even 90% success rate with this.
How did you do that before you had the list of names, though?
Yeah, before I had the list of names, my rate of success was probably about 10%, right?
Okay.
So for every interview, I would have to send about 10 emails.
Got it. So it's just persistence.
But if you don't give up, and some people that I've interviewed on my show, I have had to consistently ask them for almost 3 years.
Right.
Right. So
Did you hear that? He's been asking some people for 3 years. That is persistence. That is passion. And it's slowly paying off. When I heard that, I was like, whoa, that's impressive.
long time, and people respect that. Even very busy people, they respect that. Mm-hmm. And if you're polite and but you're persistent, they respect that. They respect your commitment. And the most incredible thing is that most of those incredible people, they started like you from the ground up. And they remember that. And they appreciate how tough it is to get going in the beginning. So most people are very nice, I find, and they're always willing to lend a hand. So, for example, now I have a little bit of momentum, but, I remember how tough it was to get those first 10 or 20 interviews. And because of that, I'm always willing and trying to find excuses to give interviews myself to people who are starting to podcast themselves.
Isn't that cool? So it's I don't know, you want to call it karma, whatever you want to call it. People ask me all the time. I had somebody email me, I'm going to be on an Australian podcast talking about podcasting. And everybody always goes, well, I'm sure you're too busy. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm never too busy to talk about podcasting. Ever. I will find... we'll find a way around my schedule. If I got to stay up till 4 a.m, I will do it. I love to give back because it's because of you that I get to do some of the cool things that I get to do. And I remember what it was like when I was starting out with a podcast. And I'm going to give you some tips here when we get done with the interview on ways that you can get interviews and things like that. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. There's Help a Reporter Out. There's that website and radioguestlist.com. But I'm always about helping, the little guy. Because when I was, it sounds weird. If I say when I was the little guy, it sounds like I'm a big guy and I'm not. But when I was just starting out, I remember. And so I'm always willing to help. And I think that's just the best attitude ever.
Even if they're total beginners, even if they don't know much about anything, and even if they haven't had any guests on their show before me.
Right.
Simply because for me, that's a way of showing support. And many of them wouldn't even make it probably, but that's okay. I just want to say that I support what they're doing, and therefore I would take the time to be with them. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. And I tell you what, a paid-for college scholarship is, we talk about monetizing the podcast. That's a pretty big payday, and then a free plane ticket on top of it is just awesome.
Absolutely, and I got to live in NASA in Mountain View for 10 weeks for free. I got to go to places like Google, Facebook, Tesla. You name it. I got to talk to astronauts. I got to speak to the people who built the Mars rovers.
Wow.
I don't know where to begin. It's amazing. It's like honestly, the power of podcasting is limitless. As long as you have good content and people care about what you do, which doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long, long time, and you have to fight for every member of your audience. And you have high integrity, I believe the sky's the limit.
There you go. There's the recipe for success. I love that. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the show. If you can answer that question because of my podcast, and if you're going, hey, look, I didn't get anything close to a college scholarship. All I did was blank. I want to know what blank is. I'm always looking for podcast success stories. Just email me, dave@schoolofpodcasting.com, and we will set it up.
Very cool. Well, one of the things we always like to ask people, especially with your background, I get the feeling I'm going to get a bunch of answers here that I've never heard of. But I always call it's called the last 5 and 5, meaning not so much what are your favorite 5 podcasts, but if you can remember, what were the last 5 podcasts that you listened to?
See, I forgot to play Rachel.
And now it's time for a last 5 and 5.
There we go.
What were the last 5 podcasts you listened to?
And here's his answer.
And then tell me a little bit about each podcast if you can remember.
Okay, well, let me tell you. So I'll start. First, I'm listening to a podcast by a guy called Brian Clark, who is an amazing blogger. Well, he has one of the most popular blogs in the world called Copy Blogger.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast called Entreproducer.
See, I didn't know that. I knew him, but I didn't know he had a podcast. Entreproducer. Yeah. Well, I know what I'm doing when we get off the Skype.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I was just listening to an episode 45 minutes before I got ready to get set up for this one.
Okay.
Then I regularly listen to Cory Doctorow's podcast. I don't know if you know who Cory Doctorow is, but he is an amazing science fiction writer, very young, probably one of the best science fiction writers in the generation of within their late 30s, early 40s.
Okay, no, that's why I figured I'd get names here that I never heard of, and
he's also the editor of Boing Boing, or one of the editors of Boing Boing.
Okay.
And daily contributor, but his personal blog is called Crap Hound, and he has a podcast, and I listen to his podcast regularly, and he often reads drafts from his own short stories or sometimes his novellas and other science fiction. Yeah.
So let me get this straight. A contributor or editor of Boing Boing has a podcast called Crap Hound. Very interesting.
Cool. That's 2.
That's 2. Okay. Then I have Social Triggers.
Yeah, Derek Halpern.
Exactly. I listen to that guy. He's another one that I listen to often because I think, I can learn a lot from those people. And, my philosophy is this. Mediocrity produces only more mediocrity. So no matter what you do, what field you're in, what you care about, be it, politics, religion, philosophy, science, technology, podcasting, it's best to find the people that you like the best and start emulating them because, success leaves traces and you can start modeling those people and they're almost always very open and always willing to share. And you can learn a lot, and you can, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can often, avoid making mistakes that they made when they were starting up just by listening and learning from their experience.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah, so that's 3.
3, yeah.
Number 4 is there's a guy called...
You can cheat and look at your phone if you need to.
Learning with Leslie.
There we go. Yeah.
I just have his opening in my head. His name is Leslie, but I don't remember his family name. And he's the guy behind the podcast show called Learning with Leslie. And it's about podcasting. And he also runs another website about blogging.
Yeah. Become a blogger. He was on the show last week.
Oh, really?
he got a job teaching Leslie Samuel.
Yeah, that's right. I just Googled him, yeah.
He got a job teaching biology through his podcast. He couldn't get, he was teaching high school biology, but he wanted to teach podcasting on a college level, and so he just started a podcast about biology and used it as his calling card. And he was kind of like almost your same situation where he was up against people that in some cases might have been more qualified or whatever, but his podcast was like a giant business card. And in the end, they went, we like what you're doing online, and he got the job. He now teaches biology at a university.
Yeah, he only has a master's degree, and despite of the fact that he doesn't have a PhD, he became a professor.
Yes.
Because of his podcast. Yeah, that's why I love his story. And by the way, I recently interviewed the top science correspondent for the CBC News in Canada. His name is Bob McDonald. He has a show on CBC Radio called Quirks and Quarks, and he's always on the CBC News TV, the national, discussing the latest in tech. But anyway, I was blown away to find out on my show that he is a dropout. He never actually made it through university, and now he has 6 honorary degrees, and he's the best-known science correspondent in Canada. He has been doing it for 30 years, but he himself never made it.
Wow.
And he's...
For the record, I know you're sitting there going, why is he talking about this? That has nothing to do with the last 5 and 5. I left that in here as the great thing about podcasting is you are the editor, you are the producer. And I like that guy's story. There's another guy that could have said, well, I could never be this. I can never be a reporter. I can never do this because he never graduated. And yet, apparently, he's the number one guy now. And it's just another example of don't sit there and go, I don't think I can do this, or I can't do this, or I'll never be listened to. Another example of a number one person who could have easily just given up.
He says, I've never been qualified to do the things that I do. So the takeaway for me is that, don't give up. Don't disqualify yourself simply on the fact that you didn't get a certain, dusty piece of paper from some old institution saying that you are qualified to do something. Just go ahead and do it, especially nowadays with the incredible technological tools that we have, which give us incredible, reach and capabilities that never existed before.
Absolutely. Amazing stuff. Okay, so let's see, Entrepreneur Corey on Crap Hound. I love that. Social Triggers, Learning with Leslie, and then the last one?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to have to go with the Smart Passive Income blog, even though I haven't listened to that one in a while, but I have listened to a few episodes of that one, and I quite enjoy it.
Yes, I actually was just on the Podcasters Roundtable with Pat and Ray Ortega and Pat Flynn, and it was Ray Ortega from the Podcaster Studio, Daniel G. Lewis of the AudacityToPodcast.com, and myself and Pat. It was a great time. We're talking about podcast success. So that's over at podcastersroundtable.com is where you can find that. So, well, Nick, thank you so much for sharing your story. I deeply appreciate it, and I wish you the best in everything you're doing.
Well, David, thank you so much for having me on your show, and it was entirely my pleasure.
There you go. I hit that button a little early, which is interesting because I'm sitting here playing with Jingle Palette and trying to get the volume to match up. And apparently you can't adjust the volume once you're running the program, which is why I don't like recording live. But a couple things I wanted to mention here. If you're looking to get people in terms of guests, go to Amazon, find your genre of book, whatever it is, horror, if it's fitness, if it's technology, whatever it is, find people that have just written a book because those people need publicity. And one of the things I am learning as I am doing more consulting, there are so many times that I just spew at the mouth helpful insights into podcasting, only to realize when I look back, the person never asked for it. I'm just explaining, look at this, and this guy did that, and here's another example of Nick, and he got a 10-week to a NASA college, and they never even asked. Just my passion overflows for podcasting. So it's easier to get guests when you are looking at people who need publicity. And that's the bad news, is typically people that are doing really, really well and they're famous, they don't really need publicity because they're already, famous. But as Nick pointed out, if you can get one person, then you can go to that second person and go, I'd like you to come on. We're going to promote you. It's all about you. It's all about your favorite topic. Here it is. Come on. Oh, and by the way, this person did it. And then when you get your second person, you could say, hey, it's all about you. It's about your favorite topic. And you have complete control. I'll even give you the questions if you want them. And then they say, great. And it eventually does get easier. But like he said, it was interesting that he said right now, I think he said he had a 90% conversion rate, for lack of a better phrase. If he sends out 10 emails of, would you like to be on the show? 9 of them say yes. When he started out, it was the direct opposite. For every 10 he would send out, he would get 1. So this is where I always tell people, when you first start out in podcasting, it's not going to be puppy dogs and rainbows. It takes a little time. It takes some scheduling. It takes some persistence. But in the end, it does get easier. It does get better. You learn about your audience. You learn what they like. You learn what they dislike. And you start creating that better content that then leads them to tell their family and their friends about the podcast. And when your guests come on and they hear great content, they're going to tell other people, wow, check this out. And they're going to send their family, their friends, and their tribe, for lack of a better phrase, to your podcast. So that is going to do it for this episode of what was it again? Binky and the Wiz? What was the name of my morning show? Binky. You're right. There we go. On this April Fool's edition of that. Hope you had a good Easter and didn't eat too much ham and all the other fun-filled things of that nature. So want to thank you so much for tuning in. This is where I do the little plug for me, and that is simply that when you hear things like this, and you're like, maybe I should start a podcast. Well, you know what? I think you should. And I think I'm the guy that is here to help you. There are a couple different ways we can pull this off. And if you give me 2 minutes, I'll tell you about them. Number one, sign up for the School of Podcasting. It's self-paced tutorials. We've got resources, everything you need to start a podcast, along with little old me there to support you. So if you have questions and things like that, you can just email me. The other thing you want to do if you're in a hurry and you don't have a website, send me an email with the phrase quick start in the subject line, and I will actually send you a link. You'll order your hosting. So you spend like $8. I earn a commission from that. I then go in and I set up your website. I install all the plugins, install WordPress, all that stuff for you. So at that point, all you need is some graphics and your website is done. And you're like, but I don't know how to manage my website. I give you a free month at the School of Podcasting, and there's a big section in there on your website. And you can actually learn how to do that, along with while you're there, learn how to record and all the other fun stuff. And again, I'll be there to help you along the way. Now, the third way is if you really want to just get down and dirty and you don't want to have to sift through all the tutorials, you can hire me for one-on-one consulting. And you can see my schedule for that at schoolofpodcasting.com/schedule. So want to thank you so much for tuning in. Our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. You can leave a comment out there. You can call in your comments, 888-563-3228. You can use the voicemail button out at the website, or you can email me, Dave, at schoolofpodcasting.com. And let me remind you that it is time to live a life worth podcasting about. And I think today is a good day to start, don't you? I do. And I hope to see you on the inside. Don't be tardy. And until next week, class is dismissed.